Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Shattered Silence, Stories of Recovery and Resilience. My name is Jori, and today I'm here with a friend, Boone Frenzel. Boone, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jori. It's great to be here.
Yeah. We met back in 2017 as photographers. You've had a very successful wedding photography business, and I second shot for a lot of those weddings.
Yeah, it was a great time because we got to spend a lot of time together shooting weddings. Had about 40 that year. It was our busiest year yet, and it was the first year, in the business that I had really needed a second shooter to help out. I had my second shooter not be able to shoot for about a year with me at that time. So yeah, it was a big part of it. So I appreciate all the help during that time and the support I felt, and it was just great to work together.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I learned a lot from you too as a wedding photographer. But so let's we got a lot to unpack today.
Sure.
But yeah, let's just start from the beginning. How was life growing up? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up down in Anaheim, California, right by Disneyland. In fact, most of my childhood was spent either at Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farm, which I was pretty spoiled. That was like the babysitting for us as kids. Season passes were much more affordable then. So it was like $99, and that was a Christmas present every year. And so my childhood was pretty good growing up, for the most part. I would say for the first 6 or 7 years, it was great. I had parents that were very loving, and I was on a church pew from the time I was 2 weeks old. So it was, all in all, everything was great. Good neighborhood friends, and so we spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house growing up, and I was the youngest of all the cousins, and there was an uncle that lived there, kind of in a detached garage there, and he would take us to Magic Mountain and different things, when we were kids. And just throughout that period, I experienced some different things in my life that never came up until later. There was some childhood trauma that we dealt with at that time. And so that was, hard to even understand and to process at a young age. But I could see how it led me down a path that wasn't the norm, started to just feel some shame and didn't know how to process it. And
and I'm sure you didn't know who to talk to.
Yeah.
How old were you?
So I was 6 to 7 years old, kind of right in that range,
Okay.
When some things had happened. And then, as far as the friend life and school life, I just kind of started hanging around friends and friends that were 4 or 5 years older than me, because I had an older brother. And so, just started to get into things just at an early age as a kid. So just in my elementary school days, I was in 5th grade at the time, and that's part of my story, like when it turns into kind of some of the substance abuse that goes along and is a, underlying theme throughout my story, essentially is, in 5th grade, I was running with kids that were 4 years older, like I said. So they're getting into high school, and they were starting to experiment with marijuana and drugs. And so I smoked my first bong rip when I was in 5th grade. So so that's...
Yeah, you're like, pretty young.
Yeah, so I remember jumping out my front window because a buddy had knocked on my window when I was in 5th grade, and he's like, come outside. And so I jumped outside, and it was like 9 o'clock at night, and I was playing Super Mario Brothers. I can remember it like vividly.
Yeah.
So I jumped out the window, and he had a bong and had marijuana with him, and I hit that for the first time and was like, oh, this is fun, and just feel differently, and stuff like that. So at such a young age, it's hard to even process, how it made you feel or what you were thinking. But it at that point, I can remember, later in life, at that point, coming back to it, it was like, okay, if I want to escape reality, this is how I do it. This is my solution. This is what I
learned that at a young age.
Yeah, very young age. So
yeah. So as a child, then, did your family know what kind of trauma you went through?
So no. So that experience, and in fact, it happened to multiple cousins. I was molested as a kid, and so it wasn't talked about. Wasn't ever talked about from any of the cousins. So it was something that came out many years later.
Oh my gosh.
After this person had passed away.
Oh my gosh.
It finally started to come out. So for me, the craziest part of that, when you look into it more and learn about repressed memories from like childhood trauma, is it didn't come out until I was 27 years old. So you're talking about from like 6, 7 years old until you're 27. And so at 27 when it came out, I was in a manic episode coming off of a substance. And my brother had asked me point blank, were you molested by this person? And I said yes, and like immediately said yes, and just didn't even like all of a sudden like everything came back to me. Like it was almost like I just had not dealt with it at all. It had not been there. But I can see the way later on that it had shaped my life. There was a lot of anger and emotion that came at that point. Like, what did this do to the trajectory of my life, because of just not processing it and not dealing with it.
I mean,
and these
that's
weren't
such
things
a
that,
young age.
Yeah.
Like, how do you process that? You have no idea.
Yeah, you don't know how. And I guess,
especially someone that's trusted.
Right. And in that situation, I would say that, like, having experienced things later in life on my own, you don't even know how to articulate it. You don't know how to discuss it. You don't know how to tell somebody necessarily at that age. And it was something that was ongoing for a period of time with some of the cousins. And so, it's just a tough thing to kind of process and
absolutely
understand at that age.
So as you were like getting into high school and stuff, this was just something that was not even like thought about really. It was like how do I say it? It's like you said, it was like a repressed memory.
Right.
So you didn't even know you were really dealing with that in high school?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right way to say it.
Yeah, no, I did. To some extent, I didn't know I was dealing with it. But as far as behavioral patterns, what it led me to, there was, like fear of abandonment, all these different things that I was feeling in those situations. Because at that age, you want to feel safe, and then you don't feel safe in a period of time. And so kind of that fear of abandonment that kind of played in later. But yeah, so from that age on, like, it's funny if you look back at my story, I was in like a 2-year relationship in junior high. I was in a 4-year relationship in high school.
Oh my gosh.
So I was always needing to be in some kind of relationship or just wanting to feel loved, wanting to feel accepted, those different things. And so, that was another kind of theme throughout my life, is just always needing to be in a relationship. Yeah. So in high school, that looks, different to different people, but getting into a serious relationship in high school and some of the behaviors and patterns, like just toxicity that can happen in those relationships when you're trying to figure out who you are and learning all these different things and not knowing who you are, but thinking you know everything. Like those relationships were very unhealthy, and just so that was kind of the high school life. The high school life also for me was a lot of partying and drugs, So when I found marijuana at such a young age, it just was always a part of my life from that point on. And that's also, like, looking back, that's when I learned that I can't do drugs recreationally.
Yeah.
I'm, maybe alcohol more so than drugs, but weed was always my drug of choice. And it was something that once I started smoking it, it was like, okay, I'm going to smoke it once, and then I'm going to smoke it 2 times a day, and then it's going to be 3 times a day, and then it's all day, every day. Yeah, so it just kind of progressed as far as the marijuana. And so because of, at the rate at which I smoked and used marijuana, I kind of told myself at that time, if I ever did anything else, I would probably not live. And so it just became something where that addiction continued to grow. So I started selling, and this will kind of lead to the next part of it, but I started when I got out of high school, I started selling marijuana, and I started picking up like an ounce at a time and selling it just to be able to smoke, and support my habit, because I didn't have a job. I was going to school. And all of this, by the way, was hidden from my parents the entire time. So they never knew any of it. So I got really good at living a double life and like hiding these things from them to be able to do what I felt like I needed to do or wanted to do. And so when I got out of high school, this is I was selling and picking up like an ounce at a time at first, and then I picked up a quarter pound, and that was that evening was kind of a very transformational time for me. I was leaving my drug dealer's house at the time down in Orange County, and driving home with a friend, and I got pulled over by Anaheim Police Department.
Oh, shoot.
So, yeah, buddy of mine in the car was flicking a lighter, and that kind of like a cop saw that and probably may have been following us, who knows. But either way, they pulled us over, and I was on the side of a curb with a quarter pound of marijuana pulled out. And the officers that evening got on a radio, and they had radioed to somebody else for something, and I heard a very familiar voice, and it was my neighborhood childhood best friend's older brother, and he worked for the police department at that time. And I said, "Is that so and so?" And he said, "Don't tell me you know this person." And so that night I ended up getting off scot-free.
Oh my gosh.
They made me stomp out everything. They made me get rid of everything, and then sent me on my
lucky.
way. Yes. And so that's been kind of a theme throughout my life, is this underlying grace that's just been, God has been very good to me and good to my family, but it's also something that I didn't feel a lot of the consequences of my actions.
Right.
And so it was almost enabling in a way, you know, and in that moment it wasn't, because it was something that really transformed me. Like the friend of mine, the childhood friend, had moved to Texas. He flew out and shared the gospel with me. I got really plugged in at that time to church. Got rid of like 5 addictions at once. I was smoking cigarettes. I was chewing tobacco. I was smoking marijuana. I was drinking, and all of these things kind of in my junior college days. And he came out and shared the gospel with me, shared some hope, and things changed from that point on.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good friend too. To fly all the way out and like be there for you. Yeah.
He just immediately, he had gone through a transformation in his life about 1 to 2 years prior to that.
Okay.
And it was his older brother that was the Anaheim police officer that, I don't know if we cut Anaheim police officer out, maybe. He was the police officer that got me off that night, and also called my parents and said, "Hey, he's going to come home with something to tell you." And so, it was just it was a very monumental time in my life as far as things need to change and need to get off of this path that I'm going on.
So then what did life look like after that? You were doing well. You got rid of these 5 different addictions for a while. So
I actually became a youth pastor after that.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
So I started getting really plugged in at church. Essentially, I was at junior college at the time, and I ended up getting into Pepperdine and went as a theology major at Pepperdine. Had a lot of letters of recommendations. Nice. Got like really plugged in at church, and then also in school started to kind of excel and really focus myself, which I had never done, prior to that. And got into Pepperdine's religion major, and then I also met Stacy at the time too. Okay. So as I was working as a youth pastor, I met who would be my wife for 15 years, and then life was just going good, and one good thing after the other during that time. We spent a couple of years down in Orange County, got married after dating for a couple of years, and then had the opportunity to move up to Bakersfield. So that's kind of what brought us.
How did that come about?
So at the time I was working for a manufacturing company, and there was a opportunity to move up here to build a manufacturing plant. And so it was right during 2006. The housing market was crazy down there. We were, newly married, and it was unaffordable for us at that point to even look at a house down there. And so jumped on the opportunity and moved up here, and that's kind of when our own life started. I had gone from living with my parents and being, a teenager and young adult to getting married at a young age, for me. I was 22 years old when we got married.
Dang, yeah. That is
And
young.
she was 4 years older. I was always hanging with the crowd that was 4 years older. So she was 26 when we got married, and we moved up here, and then, life just happened. Started a family pretty early on, and then everything started to unravel a little bit.
Before we get into that,
sure.
How did you get started in the photography then?
So
Because you're in a completely different field.
Yeah, completely different field. I was doing administrative management at this plant that we had built here in town. And kind of leading up to photography, that's kind of when I started to feel just uneasy in life, and hadn't touched substances in about 7 years at that point. It's kind of my longest period of sobriety at that point. And something came on the market called Spice, which was a synthetic cannabis. And
Remember that.
Okay, so when that came out, I went full force into it. Like I had actually, it was something that I had talked about with Stacy. I was always a little bit stressed out with things, and just anger would come out, different things. And this was a way that I justified with her, like, this will help calm me down, and this is something that's going to be good for, me and stuff like that.
And for you, if I'm calmed down. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I got into smoking spice at that time when I was working in the manufacturing facility, and just kind of dealing with the stress of that. And we had just had, Isaiah, and life was very different for me, and I didn't know how to handle it. Just my emotional maturity level at that time was just extremely low. And so just didn't know how to handle many things that I was dealing with at the manufacturing facility. And so I started smoking spice, and smoked it multiple times a day. And the DEA put an emergency ban out on it after 3 months because of how bad it was, the chemicals in it. And when you synthesize something by spraying chemicals on it, like what it can do to your mind. And so kind of what led into photography is I had to leave that position at the manufacturing facility because I was smoking spice there daily. They didn't catch me, but what happened is I went on my first 5150 psychiatric hold at a psychiatric institution from coming off of that substance. And so it led to what was diagnosed that time as a temporary state of psychosis and paranoid schizophrenia. So that was a whole nother kind of world. And
spice is crazy. I cannot believe they even had it like legally out for a while. And I was in high school. I remember when it came out. I had a lot of friends that even were smoking spice, and I even had a friend that went to recovery because he couldn't get off the spice. So I know that it became very addictive as well.
Yeah, it was very addictive, and for me it was like something that was sold legally,
Right.
It was not intended for human consumption. So it was sold legally, but it was something that triggered the same receptors as marijuana. And so for me, it felt like I was smoking marijuana, but it was something that was legal.
Yeah, I could just buy it at the store down the street. Yeah.
And that I did. I bought a lot of it and just used a lot of it. And it just really went downhill fast, and I had never experienced anything with mental health before that. So my mind was completely gone. Like, I thought my kids were robots. So many different things happened, and it was very scary for Stacy and I, and for my parents. Like, we didn't know what we were dealing with. And so I remember going to a doctor down in Orange County at the time. That we had gone down there for a trip, and it was somebody that we went to church with, and he said, like, we just don't know, like, what this stuff is. Like, nobody knows. It's been out for a couple of months, and people are having really bad, reactions to it, but we just don't know. We don't know if he's going to come back from this, essentially, is what they told my parents. Like,
that's terrifying. Yeah.
And so it was a scary time. So I went on a psychiatric hold of 5150, and then after 3 days, after 72 hours, it was still I was still not good. And so it turned into a 5250 for like a extended period of time. And I was like 9 days in the psychiatric institution at that time. And so
how did that make you feel? I mean, I'm sure that was just a weird time.
Yeah, it was a weird time. And to be honest with you, since they kind of put the word temporary state of psychosis on it, like, after we finally got on some medication at that time and it kind of stabilized everything, we thought it was just kind of a one-time thing. And what I've learned, throughout my story is essentially substances with me don't work well with my brain chemistry. And so, at that time it was with spice, and then spice was kind of not around anymore. And my story continued on essentially for a couple of years of sobriety and a couple of years of repairing marriage and family life and like what had happened during that time, to then in 2015 having a psychiatric episode with just weed this time. So
Okay.
I had gone back on weed. So
Aspire Counseling Services provides caring, personalized support for adults and teens facing mental health challenges. From group therapy to mindfulness, art, and even pet therapy, their programs are designed to help people feel better and build healthier habits. Teens can get the support they need while still keeping up with school and home life. You can reach Aspire at 888-585-7373. So then you started smoking weed again, and then you realized, though, that that's kind of what put yourself in a bad mental state.
yeah, so I started smoking weed in about 2014 and hid it from Stacy for an entire year because she had seen the effects of what spice did to me,
Right.
essentially. So something that I got approved by her, essentially,
Yeah.
going into it turned out really bad. And so I knew she wasn't going to be okay with that. But I was just feeling a lot of insecurity, guilt, not knowing how to deal with life on life's terms, essentially. At the time, we had started the photography business, so that was kind of the transition, a couple of years before that, after I came out of the psychiatric, institution the first time. We started the photography business, and it was going well, and it was something that I could kind of pour my identity into, and then it was something that just started out of nowhere. I had no prior camera experience or anything like that.
You guys are good. Very successful too. I remember looking at all your guys' stuff and was just like, gosh, they do beautiful weddings. And yeah, I just loved your guys' work.
I appreciate it. There was a lot of passion behind it, things that had happened in our marriage back during 2010, 2011, during the time, that I was on Spice and other things, just led to me wanting to put ourselves in a situation where we're always around weddings and just the most joyful time in people's lives.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a big part of like the motivation. There was also just a passion behind photography. I went snowboarding with a friend and he handed me a digital SLR while he was going off a jump, and he's like, hey, hold down the shutter here and, you'll get like 6 frames per second and I'm going to go off this jump. And I was like, okay, cool. And I did it. And that night I went home and bought a camera. And
gosh.
That's the story. The extremist in me went home and said,
Yeah.
hey, Stacy,
I thought that was pretty cool.
I'm going to bid on a camera and just see like where the reserve is, where the low price is on eBay at the time and stuff like that. And then we ended up buying a camera that night on accident. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It turned out.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
But that's a cool story. I actually remember you telling me that part of it about your going snowboarding with your friend. Yeah. So then I know you guys got super, super, super busy. You guys had a lot of weddings coming up. Do you want to get into that part?
Yeah. So I would say we didn't know anything about starting a business. We had never, been in business for ourselves or anything like that. So all the things that come along with that, the stress, and then, the goal is always to be busier and always to, do more weddings and to do this. And as we rebranded and turned what it was at the time Daniel Boone Photography into Boone and Stacy Weddings, we booked out our busiest year. And then kind of the behind the scenes, the family life was just going downhill. We were working together every weekend. We were working together all week. We had 2 young kids, just learning how to live life, just all the stress that comes along with living with an addict for Stacy, it was very difficult. Just the environment that I created around the house and needing to escape and go use and hide it from her was, so the line and the lack of trust that she could have in me and when those things would come out was just difficult because as we built the photography business, there was a lot of stress involved that I just didn't know how to process yet and how to deal with. And so 2017, we booked our busiest year yet. We had 42 weddings on the books.
Gosh, that's so crazy.
Which was like, in Bakersfield, like it's fall and spring for weddings. And so that was condensed into a short amount of time. It was Fridays in this part of town and then Saturdays over at the coast or something. So it was just, it was a lot of stress.
I bet. I can just think about, I don't even travel nearly as much as wedding photographers, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Balancing family life and having kids I'm sure that was so hard.
Yeah, it was challenging. And, at that time, the addiction had continued to kind of grow to kind of deal with these things, and it manifested into different ways. Like I got into gambling pretty heavy. I was always had played poker, like in my younger years and in college and stuff like that. I played a lot of poker, but I had stayed away from it for a period of time, and I can remember in like 2016, when you book that many weddings, the money is good too. And so, we were happy to have it. I went, and there was a period in like 2016, right before, our busiest year there. And I had gone and gambled and quite a bit. It was like a 3-week period that I went on a bender of, hiding that as well from Stacy. Yeah. And I had gambled about $25,000 in about 3 weeks that I had lost.
Well,
so that led to some more marital issues, as you could probably assume, and it led beyond that. There was just the mental health, like the state after you kind of come out of that bender and realize you just lost all this money, and you didn't have that money to lose. Like, it was not money I had to lose, essentially. It was money to support our family. And so there was a lot of suicidal ideations at that time. Like, I was, calling Stacy and just in tears and not knowing how to process it, and telling her I was going to park my car on some train tracks and just wait for a train. Like, or just, I just suicide by cop or something. It was just getting really bad at that point. And so at that time, Stacy decided that we needed to separate for a period of time, and she needed to move away. So she took the kids and moved to Oregon during that time. And I was kind of left to deal with all these weddings that we had committed to. Right. And she basically told me, "Hey, I can't shoot for a year. Like, I'm taking all of 2017 off. Like, you're going to have to figure it out." Mm-hmm. And it was what she needed to do for her own sanity and peace at the time. Get the kids to a safe place. She wasn't comfortable with where it was, with where the marriage was. And so that's kind of when we met and got to shoot some weddings together. Yeah. Thankfully, you were there, and there was many times that I was prepping for a wedding, and just so much anxiety that time. I learned a lot about myself. So much anxiety, like not wanting to go, not wanting to show up, just not wanting to be there, but wanting to be there for that couple and knowing that I needed to, like I committed to this. So it was just a very difficult time. But I'd pick you up and we go to a wedding, or we meet at the wedding. And you were just always just very sweet and very encouraging and stuff like that. You. And so it was very easy to work with, and it felt a lot like working with Stacey. Like, it just made everything very easy during that time from that standpoint. So.
Yeah. And I know it's like, it really is now. I know a lot more now, since Kyle has passed, like having to deal with your own like mental health and wellness, and like having to still go out and like be these people's photographer and like perform and give them a great results, but it's also like you still have to socialize and you still have to be present. Right. And that is so hard. Yeah. I remember going back to work after Kyle passed, and I'm like seriously just remembering having tears in my eyes, and I'm like, I just do not want to be here at all. Yeah. I don't want to talk to you. Yeah. I don't want to, it's freaking hard. Yeah. So I didn't know what you were going through when we first got connected. Yeah. I know that you had said that there was just some family stuff going on, and I didn't ask, and I didn't care to ask, it's your own deal. You tell me what you want. Yeah. But yeah, I just like knowing what I know now, I just like, I really do commend you for being able to go through all these weddings and handle it that way too.
Yeah. To be honest with you, you just kind of triggered a memory. During that time, we didn't know how to tell people. Like, when Stacy and I separated for that time, we had 42 weddings on the books. And if we told people, hey, we're separated and she's not shooting all of 2017, like at first it was just, hey, there's some family stuff up in Oregon that she's dealing with and she needs to be away for this period of time. Yeah. And it was some family stuff up in Oregon. So we're trying not to be like dishonest, but also trying not to create this level of fear that all of a sudden said, hey, we want to cancel and go elsewhere, And so like, it was a very difficult time to kind of deal with it all. And I also knew at that time, like, hey, you're going to have your primary shooter. You're going to have Boone here. Like, I'm going to show up for this. And so even on days that I didn't feel like it, I didn't feel like being on this, planet. Like I was going to commit to being there and delivering a good product and doing everything I could to show up for the clients. And so we did hold it in very high regard in this town to like be trusted with people's weddings. We know how big of a day that is for people. And the amount of money that they invest, at times and stuff like that. So it was definitely something that I held in high regard and wanted to be there for. Yeah. But at the time, there were days that I didn't know how I was going to be there.
Yeah.
We got through
like,
it.
How am I going to get through this day?
Yeah. And then 2017 was actually, when Stacy and I separated at that time, it was a time that I found Aspire too. So I got plugged into a local, rehab facility and like an intensive outpatient program. And I was always hesitant to like go to rehab, even though I definitely had a problem. I knew in going to Aspire, it's like I'm at rehab for weed, so I had never gotten past that at this point in my story. And so I knew that there were like, people are going to laugh at me for being at rehab for weed, and not there was that stigma just with in my own mind. Like I didn't, and so I knew I was going to be next to somebody that was struggling with a heroin addiction or things like that. And it was like, and it was always perception that I was worried about, it was upholding this image or like, just didn't want to be that guy. So.
But I feel like at that point too, like being able to recognize that you still do need to get that help is a big thing in itself.
Yeah, I will say I got walked in there by by Stacy, so it was kind of
like it wasn't 100% my choice.
Yeah, never was really 100% my choice to actually get help and deal with things at that point in my life. So Stacy had kind of given the ultimatum, like, hey, we're going to separate, and if you want this marriage to continue, like, you need to get treatment. And so that was the real story behind it, essentially. But yeah, so I went through at Aspire. It was. I will tell you, I did not take the first 30 days seriously at all. Yeah. Like the first 30 days, I did not get sober. I had a great counselor there, a guy by the name of Joe, that finally called me out at like 25, 30 days into the program and said, like, are you going to start taking this seriously? Like, do you not realize you don't have your family right now? Like, you've lost your family, you've lost this. So while you think, this with weed is not serious, like, look at what you've lost around you. And it like all of a sudden hit and
You're
things
like,
changed. Yeah.
Oh man, he's just really letting me have it.
Yeah, he really, I mean, he called me out on it and called me out in a group setting, and it kind of made me realize, hey, yeah, what am I giving up for these substances? Yeah. And so I wish relapse wasn't a part of my story, but it continues on and just continues to be a part of, has been a part of my story throughout. And so 2017, when Stacy and I were separated, we were able to, after I completed Aspire, 90-day program there, and had graduated from Aspire, Stacy came back home, the kids came back home, and life kind of was good for a period of time, and I would say that, at different periods, I tried to get sober and tried to live a certain way because I thought that was going to make my marriage be successful, and that it was going to be good I knew it would be good for my kids, but it was, I kept trying to do those things. And so finally, what led to the kind of next part with my addiction story and kind of with the marital troubles was in 2019, Stacy and I decided to divorce at that time. And at that time, I just kind of didn't know how to live. And so that story of just sticking to weed and weed being the only, drug that was going to be in my life changed. And I finally started experimenting with some other things. And that's when I found out that if you want to exacerbate mental health issues or any underlying thing, you put cocaine on it, and it's going to do that really fast. And so that's kind of what led to the next part of my story. And it was now I was, for the first time in my life, experiencing it alone. Wasn't living with family. I didn't have, Stacy and the kids there at that time because we had just decided to finalize a divorce. And now I was kind of left to my own.
I'm sure that was a really, really tough time.
Yeah, I just didn't know how how to deal with it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I knew that the relationship with Stacy and I, we both had, you know, agreed. It was at the time, it was a very, mutual thing of like, this just isn't working out. And we've given it like all we have and stuff
Right.
like that. And at the time, you know, like we had given it, you know, 4 or 5 years of biblical counseling together and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like we were in it and attempting everything we could
Right.
to make it work, you know, for
Mm-hmm.
the kids and for us. But the strain it was putting on both of us, and what Stacy had endured and gone through in that marriage is just beyond. It's a testament to Stacy's faith and just how forgiving of a woman she was,
Mm-hmm.
because through it all, you know, I was never trying to hurt Stacy. It was just
Right.
I didn't love myself. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel worthy of just being loved,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was just wanting to escape that constantly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, in all this time, too, like, I know you went to Aspire. Did you seek any other, like, counseling?
Yeah, so during that time, I met with different therapists, kind of about the repressed childhood trauma memory that had come out when I was 27. I met with one through like a biblical counselor, and then I met with just another person at the wellness center there. I got with a psychiatrist to kind of get meds and figure out, you know, how to process kind of some of the depression and the anxiety I was feeling and different things, just dealing with all the trauma that I hadn't really, I had created a lot of it and I hadn't, you know, dealt with what had been done at a young age. So
Can we talk about that a little bit? Like, when you, like, kind of had this memory, like, come back. I know you said it was your brother, right, that just asked
my
you?
brother asked me point blank, yeah.
Yeah. And then, so how was it for you right after when you kind of, like, realized and those memories kind of came back?
Yeah, so as the memories come back, and then you go to talk to somebody about it, like one of the exercises that I went through cognitive behavioral therapy, like CBT and DBT. You talk through like the instance, like one that stands out, like memory, you know, above all else, like that first time that it happened, like you start to talk through that and process through it. And so it was difficult to
Yeah.
process, difficult to talk through. I'd minimized it at times, and then talking with a therapist, you realize that there were lots of, you know, like I referenced earlier, our uncle would take us to Magic Mountain and stuff, and he would buy cigarettes, and I was like in 6 years old,
Oh
you
my
know, and just
gosh.
different things. And so you realize when you're talking to a therapist, they tell you that's grooming. Like he was grooming you for
Yeah.
these opportunities essentially to deal with his own stuff.
Right.
And so it was hard to process.
Yeah, I bet.
But then as you talk about some of those things, they start to lose power.
Right.
But I would say the biggest shift in my perspective there in dealing with that in my life is I was at a marriage retreat at one point, you know, with somebody that actually owned the wedding album company that we bought our wedding albums through. And he asked me if I had forgiven that person. And I was like, F no. Like, no, like, screw that person. Like, you know, look what he did. He took my whole childhood away from me, essentially. Like, look at the trajectory. And I didn't even realize it at that point, but that was something that forgiveness wasn't just for him. It was for me, you know, it was for my own heart at that time. So I just lived with this victim mentality that he did this to me. You know, my life was different because of this. I didn't know how to process it and look at all these mistakes I made. And so it was always somebody else's fault, you know, until it wasn't. Until finally I decided to start accepting responsibility for what my part in, not necessarily with that instance. Like that was just something that, as an innocent kid, you got your innocence taken away essentially, and you didn't know how to process it. But the choices that I made afterwards that affected way more than just me and my kids growing up in their younger years and Stacy at the time and stuff like that. Like I finally had to start taking responsibility for those things. So I know there's a lot of bad in the story leading up and just a lot of
No,
mistakes
we'll
that were
get to all
made.
the good too.
Yeah, for sure.
There's
For
good
sure.
mixed in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's part of everyone's story. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's why we have
Yeah.
these stories, because there's good and there is the bad sprinkled in there, but there's a lot of good too.
Yeah. There was a lot of good. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back to you and Stacy's divorce is finalized, and were you still shooting weddings at that point?
So when Stacy and I split, I had a couple of weddings, and in fact, one of them was your sister's wedding.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had a couple of weddings left on the books. This was also kind of right around the time of COVID. And so like that was a
Yeah, it
big part. That was a lot
was.
of the stress, in fact, that kind of led to us splitting or just not knowing how to kind of move forward with things. Is we had a lot of weddings booked that were, mini guests, and they had to, yeah. So a lot of people, photographers, were postponing at that time, and we decided to cancel and refund. And so we were coming out of pocket, like everything we could, to be able to refund customers. Things were uncertain with Stacy, and at that point, there was just kind of a final straw that broke the camel's back in our marriage at that time. That had us splitting, and it was just a very uncertain time for everything, So having to step away from the business, having to try and figure out what life's going to look like, not living together and not being together, and what we were going to do about the house and the kids and all of that stuff. And so, 2019 into 2020 was when we decided to keep Stacy and the kids in the house. That was one of the major things that we wanted to do. And I went to live with family at the time, and lived with my brother for a period of time, and really just started to escape into just some drugs and some other things. And so,
And that's when at that point is when you started to use coke.
yeah, so I started to use cocaine during that time, and it was something that my brother's been phenomenal for me all the way through, and he always told me to stay away from cocaine. And so he had experienced different things, but he's not does not have that addictive personality like I do, as much. He's able to. So he had always known with me that it was not going to be good if I ever got into that, and so he always told me. So you talk about like addiction and the strain that it puts on family, and I can obviously, we've seen how much strain it put on Stacy and immediate family, and then my brother. That was a big turning point when he found out that I was using that. Like, he had to separate himself from me, and as much as he could, just because he could not see it, he knew that it was going to be a really, really bad path for me. Yeah. And it did. At that time when Stacy and I were splitting, and I was taking a portion of the house to, try and set myself up in, another house, or what we were going to do for like living situation. I blew through a large amount of money in a very, very short time, in a couple month period. And when I started to use cocaine, it was, at first it was like, oh, I'll buy a gram, and then I'll do this. And then it was an 8-ball a day. And then it was, by the end of it, it was a quarter ounce a day of cocaine that I was putting down. It was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, and so essentially it was something that, with the mental health issues that I deal with, with my brain chemistry, with coming off of substances, and kind of what I've learned from substances is that whenever I'm coming off of a substance or doing an excessive amount of a substance, that there's going to be some like breaking point for me. And so 2020 was a tough time all around. Didn't know how to process, knew that the marriage wasn't good for me and Stacy, but also wasn't like okay with the decision to not be married anymore, and not be with the kids, and not, have all of that in my life. It was the first time I was experiencing that. So I would just say I did a lot of cocaine and tried to mask it.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I just, I didn't know how to deal with it. I did not have the tools. There was no emotional maturity. Like, I did not know how to deal with pain. I never wanted to feel emotional pain, essentially. Like, the theme throughout my life was always wanting comfort and wanting not to deal with pain.
Yeah.
So,
and just not knowing how to deal with it.
Yeah, really just didn't know how to process it. So there was different points in my life where I got some tools and tried to put some of those tools together and learn. But, at that point in my life, I did not know how to deal with it. And so, that was a very public display. I know with social media, it pains me to think, a little bit. But
yeah, but and I remember seeing you struggling. And this is where also Kyle comes in.
Yeah.
I know that you were going through a tough time, and it's just like, oh my gosh, what's he going through? I don't know what's happening, worried and concerned about you. But Kyle, not even really knowing you all that much.
Right.
He knew that we had worked together so many times, and so he definitely knew you. And you had even shot one of my good friends' weddings, and I remember him like talking with you a lot there. I mean, as much as he could, but he respected you a lot too. And seeing that, he was also very concerned for you. And that was so, I get this little chance to talk about Kyle and how like awesome he was, and the fact that he just really cared about people.
Right.
And I remember I was out of town for something, and he was like, I just invited Boone over. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
You're hanging out with Boone? I thought it was so weird at first, I'm like, that's like unexpected.
Yeah.
But he was just like, he's going to come over. And he told me he just remembers, he knows what it's like to be going through something and not know who to turn to, and feeling like you're alone and you can't talk about your struggles. And I don't even remember how he reached out to you or how you guys even talked, but
yeah, I can tell you, like with Kyle, and just how I feel about Kyle is I only got to be around him a handful of times.
Yeah.
Like it was limited, but in that moment when he reached out, and it was on social media, I was posting a lot on social media. I was recording Instagram lives and just throwing up on everybody, how I was feeling, different victim mentality with different things, and Kyle was just a special person. Like just about Kyle, like he was a force of nature. He was just an amazing person, huge heart, life of the party. I mean, and so when he reached out, it was at a time when family was separated from me. Like my parents and my brother just had to separate themselves because emotionally they couldn't even deal with like what they were experiencing because of what they were seeing with me and kind of the pain that I was going through, but not knowing how to process, and instances of, getting arrested for messing with there was a restraining order that I didn't even know I had on me, essentially. And that was because I was on cocaine at the time, and Stacy didn't want me to pick up the kids essentially from school or just like do something crazy. And so she had got a restraining order. I got served with it and wasn't aware of it. And so I got arrested. And so I know there were instances in there where I was just kind of pouring my heart out online, and Kyle reached out through Instagram and just said, hey, call me. And I was like, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Called him right away. And then he said, you really just look like you're struggling and could use a friend. Like I'm here for it, whatever it is, And so he invited me over, and then he probably listened to me talk for countless hours that evening. In fact, I remember
that makes me tear up though, because that's just so that's just so him.
Yeah, he just put his life on hold in that moment and just said, here, I'm here for it, whatever you got. And then we just talked and talked and talked for hours. And then he was like, sorry, I gotta go to sleep. Like I'm falling asleep. So he was he was there for me at a time, and just really made me understand how special he was. So.
Yeah. I know. I'm glad that you got to see that side of him. Although I'm not glad how it happened,
Right.
But I am glad that you got to see that side of him.
Yeah, and just want to also just tell you how much I admire what you've done with grief and different trauma that you've had in your life. Like, it's such an inspiration for me to see that you've taken this and just the good that comes out of it. And that's just, I feel like that's a testament to who you are. It's what I felt, back in 2017 when I met you. It's just you always have a great mindset and attitude and perspective about life. So it's been really cool to see what you've done with Shattered Silence.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. Like, I don't know, even just like the other day, I'm sitting here thinking about this podcast, and I was just like, I would have never thought that we would be here towards the end of season 3 now.
Yeah.
And just all the like support that we've gotten from other people, just that this podcast has helped them.
Yeah.
And if anybody, like, even on actually the Nextdoor app, someone said something about her sister lost her son just recently. Is there any resources out there, and to be able to, like, give a resource, even just
Yeah.
like, hey, listen to this podcast, go to our Instagram, check out some of these like reels, and then you can listen and watch full episodes,
Yeah.
just trying to like give some sort of resource. I mean, I think that's super special and super cool to
I
be
think it
able to
is.
do.
I think what you do is really special because you create a safe space for people to talk, and like in different times, because I've been involved with Narcotics Anonymous, I've been involved with different programs, and there's like limitations on what you can say in some things when talking about like your faith or anything like that. I've had experiences with that, and so you just create a safe space where people can tell their story, relate, and I feel like that's an encouragement and blessing to others.
Thank
That
you.
like goes well beyond probably what you realize with it. So
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to after then.
Yeah.
After all of this happened, after you I guess after you and Kyle had hung out, and what was life looking like after that? How did you get to a good point?
Yeah, I would say like all the whirlwind and tornado that happened in 2020 when Kyle was a huge support for me when he was there during that time when my brother and family couldn't be. That was just extremely difficult, and it was also a manic episode with bipolar 1 that lasted for an extended period of time. If anybody's experienced like bipolar and mania that comes along with it, there's mania and there's depression, right? And the mania that comes with it typically lasts for periods of like 3 to 4 days. And this was exacerbated by high levels of so much cocaine and drugs that it just it lasted for like 3 months. And so in that mania, it was just wearing on everybody. It was making everybody very tired. And so there were times that I was away from family, and so I was throwing up on everybody on social media, like I said. But what happened after that, and kind of the height, is the crash that comes with that. So then here comes after 2020 and losing the family and losing the business and having to shut down the business and everything else. It just led to a pretty severe depression for, I'd say, a good year. I was sleeping probably 16, 17 hours a day. Wasn't able to work. I wanted to be gone from this world, but I didn't ever want to do that to my kids. And so that was the biggest thing that was holding me here. But I just didn't want to be here, but I didn't want to live. But I didn't want to do that to my kids and leave my kids in that state. So
thank God for kids, seriously.
Yeah.
'Cause I can somewhat relate to that too. It's like after Kyle passed, like, oh, how am I even going to get through this? And I look at my little boy, like, that's how I get through it.
Yeah, for sure. And whatever, I'm so glad that something like that can keep us here and like make us hold on, because the reality is during that time that I wasn't working and I was sleeping like 17 hours a day, because I literally I would wake up and I'd go back to sleep because like, oh, I'm still on this earth. Like that's how I felt. It's as bad as it was. That's how it was. And it was, the perception, I was always a people pleaser, wanted to be liked, wanted to be loved, different things like that. So like throwing up on everybody online, like not knowing how, everything was out the window, at that point. And so my brother, shared with me at that time, and it was hard to see at that time, but he shared with me just some encouragement that, Boone, like your life could look so much different in 2 years. A series of small steps. That's what he told me, like a series of small steps. And I didn't believe it at first, I didn't believe it. And then there was just like an aha moment, like a mindset shift. Like, yeah, if we just start putting in some steps today, if I just start trying to get back to work and getting a consistent work routine, if I try and diet and exercise and different things that would improve my mental health, if I start to prioritize my mental health, like maybe it will look different, And so there was just like these glimpses of hope. So that honestly, that advice changed everything for me, because now we're able to now we're 4 years later. Also a big part of that, obviously, that I'm kind of skipping over, is getting free from substances. And so October 3rd, 2021 was the last time I smoked marijuana. So just passed over 4 years.
Congrats on that.
Thank you. That's a huge part of it. Just because it was finally somebody wasn't forcing me to do it, you know. I was finally willing to deal with life on life's terms. I was willing to take any kind of emotional pain that comes along with, you know, going through a divorce, and wasn't able to see the kids at that time for 7 months. And there was all these different things that happened during that whirlwind in 2020 that I just had to deal with the consequences of. But we finally just dealt with them like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm here for
Like,
it.
now
Let's deal
it's
with
time.
it. Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Finally time to be an adult.
Yeah.
And so that was a big part of it. And not knowing how to, you know, get through some of those things, but just knowing, hey, whatever it is, we'll tackle it.
Yeah.
And so there was 3 years of probation that prevented me from like getting a job. And so that was part of the thing, is I couldn't get work. Like Uber Eats turned me down.
Right.
DoorDash turned me down to
Uh-huh.
like be a delivery driver. Like I couldn't get like any kind of
Yeah.
work
And
for a couple
that's got
years.
to be a little discouraging too, I'm sure.
It was discouraging. Yeah, I felt like I couldn't get a job
you're like,
anywhere.
well, then what am I
went
supposed to do? Yeah.
went from owning my own business and doing this and having successful business to like not even be able to be a delivery driver essentially, you know. And so there was a lot with that, and that was part of it. But you know, I got an opportunity in 2023 to go to work for somebody, and just took that opportunity and did really well for them. And just, you know, switched over to another company and doing really well there. And it's all you know, all dealing with like not being a victim anymore, accepting responsibility for what I did, what actions I had made, and then really taking ownership of those and moving forward and just having a different mindset. So it's cool. So me and my brother get to look back, you know, now on, and he gets to say, hey, I told you so 2 years ago. Your life could look so much different. And today, you know, your the emotional maturity levels there. You have a great relationship with Stacy, as like co-parenting relationship.
That's awesome.
We get to, you know, I honestly consider more than a co-parent. We just get to be good friends and be able to really show our kids something different. You know, a lot of people's story doesn't end that way with divorce. A lot of friends that I had that were going through it, like, just don't have great relationships with their exes. And so the fact that we're able to kind of be there for the kids feel loved, they know they're supported. It's cool. And it's just a testament to who Stacy is, and also who God is, and being able to restore and just the redemptive qualities of what he's able to do. And
Absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome.
yeah.
I know we always like to hear like the success after, you know, like we said, there's some bad times in there. Okay. But there's good things too. So it's nice to see, you know, you're sober, you know, and you've been doing well. You got your job.
Yeah.
How's
So
work been?
Yeah, work's been great. Work's been really good. I got to finish top in my region last month in sales, and so doing outside sales for a national brand, and it's been extremely good, and it's, you know, a large focus in my life right now is just working. When you commit the kind of financial suicide that I did in 2020 post divorce, and then spending all of that money on drugs in a 3-month period essentially, you got to rebuild. And so that was kind of an insurmountable weight at the time. Like, that's why I didn't want to be here, right? I spent everything. I have nothing. I'm living in hotels. Like, you know, in 2020, I was living in hotels a week at a time, essentially, in like the Vagabond Inn down there on Panama Lane. And like, shootings are happening outside. And like the weekend after I left there was a shooting. It was just like, yeah, the situation that I was in was hard to cope with and deal with at the time. But I just took my brother's advice and believed that, you know, a series of small steps. And so after putting in the work, you know, a little bit, and I will tell you, it's just much different these days. So it's cool. It's not before the sobriety for different periods of time was linked to, like, okay, there was a lot of white knuckling that went on and stuff like that. Today, I just, you know, feel like I made a choice 4 years ago that, hey, I've seen what life looks like with this. I know that this is not a good option for me, and I'm finally prioritizing on a daily, you know, basis my mental health and, you know, just a better life.
Yeah. Do you, at this point, do you still see a therapist or anything like that?
So I don't see a
Sorry, I
therapist.
asked that question a lot.
Yeah, not a problem. I don't see a therapist today or anything like that. I feel like, as weird as it sounds, and this is what I've told, you know, people on countless occasions, like, all the throwing up that like the whole public saw, any of my Bakersfield followers, which is like a lot of past wedding clients, which was sad. But any of the mess that like I threw up with, like after that, things just changed. Like it's almost like I got everything out. And so I had gone to different therapists. I had been, at 3 or 4 therapists throughout my time and spent years talking with them. And as ugly as it was in 2020 of me just throwing up, it's like I just needed to get this weight off, and then I could understand and like, hey, this is part of my past. This is not what I dwell on anymore. Things happen in my life. I had a lot of guilt and shame at times, but today it's much different. Like it's not that I hold that with like no regard or just think it didn't happen. Like it happened. It's dealt with. There's nothing I can do about what happened in the past, but I can change what it looks like going forward. Right. And so even years that I was absent from my kids, with the drug use and everything like that, it's like, okay, I could really be sad about how bad of a dad I was or how much I wasn't there for them, during their childhood, or I could change today and I could call my daughter. So I'm instituting a thing where it's a daily call, and I just call Paige every day, and it's like, hey, I love you. And she's like, what are you calling her? I'm like, this is just my daily check-in. Like you're going to get a daily call from me. Like my son, we do different things together and spend time together. So even though life looks very differently today, and you have to grieve what was lost in divorce. Like I'm not there every day with the kids like I was. It's a different environment now. But then I also get to think back to like 2020, and I didn't get to see them for 7 months because of actions. So it's like, okay, today's much better than that, So just being positive about, different opportunities that I do have. So. And you can, and at first, it's like, oh, this sucks to grieve what was lost. But Stacey and I we could sit here and talk today. Like, we're two good people that were not good together. And it was because I hadn't dealt with any of my stuff and everything like that. She, even today, even dealing with stuff, like she's just a different personality, likes to control and stuff like that. I obviously did not like to be controlled and stuff. So it was like I ran to drugs because that was my escape. But we both played a part in it. We both would take ownership of that. And today, even though a lot of my stuff was outward as far as like what I put her through, she knows, her part in it. And it's like, today we can just move on because we both have accepted this, and life can also look really good. Like she's remarried now. I'm really welcoming of her, husband, as far as like, hey, come over and barbecue and stuff like that.
Yeah,
have the
that's
kids.
Awesome. And
it's good for the kids.
That's what I was going to say. That's so cool that you guys can show that to your kids.
Yeah.
Well, we usually end with a piece of advice. So is there any advice that you would give anyone, honestly, on any aspect? Biggest piece of advice.
Honestly, the biggest piece of advice is just accept responsibility for your part in things. Try to overcome that victim mentality because nobody is coming to save us. You're on your own to do it, essentially, and it can be done too. There's so much hope. There's so much light at the end of the tunnel, essentially, that even when it looks dark and bleak, if you're in addiction, you're a recovering addict, like at different times it's difficult to process these things without substances to make us feel better, and it's just a series of small steps, like what my brother said. Like your life could look so much different in a couple of years. It's just a series of small steps. Like do one action today that's going to change what tomorrow looks like. So
I love that advice, and I'm going to continue to give that advice to other people too. Sure. People don't realize like even something so small like that, like small, right?
Yeah.
Like just a series of steps, but that's something that's stuck in your head, okay, I can continue to do this just one little step at a time,
Yeah, I'm working with a friend right now that just struggles with anxiety, and he hasn't picked up the phone a couple of times when I've called, and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I just have so much anxiety I can't pick up the phone. And I'm like, let's do a series of small steps together. And so right now we're just texting each other each day 3 things that we're grateful for. So I would like a big part of my journey has gone through and done a gratitude journal, and so we're just trying to do that with him right now, and it's awesome. But
see, I feel like I know we're all ending and I'm still talking about things, but I just really do feel like, I don't know, the things that we've gone through in our own lives and being able to get out of that space, it helps us to be able to provide that help to someone else that doesn't know what it's like to come out on the other side of things, So I think It's part of it, part of life.
It's part of
going through your struggle so you can also continue to help other people.
Carrying the message forward,
yes,
for sure.
Exactly.
That's a big part of it, and it's what I hope to do more of in the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, Boone, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
You know, it means a lot to me. It really does. So I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Shattered Silence. As always, don't forget to follow us on all of our socials on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can watch full episodes on YouTube, or you can listen in on Apple Podcast or Spotify.